Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing very well. So in today's video I have a tutorial for this really cute mushroom plant pot holder. This is the perfect room decor piece to make things a little bit more interesting, and it's also a really cool gift idea. So if you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up, and let's get into the tutorial. Okay, so for today's project I'm going to be using a 2.5mm hook. You can also use a 3mm hook or a 3.5. My tension is just a little bit loose and I don't want there to be any gaps in my crochet work, so I'm using a smaller hook to kind of account for the fact that I have a loose tension. So just use the hook that you feel more comfortable with when you are crocheting in the round, for example like amigurumi projects. And I am going to be using double knit yarn, so this yarn works well with this hook in my opinion. We're also going to be needing some scissors, a sewing needle and a stitch marker. And you're also going to need some sort of stuffing. I'm going to be using yarn scraps, but you can also use like a polyester toy stuffing, any kind of stuffing that you want, but I'm going to be using yarn scraps, so if you don't have like an actual proper stuffing, that's fine, you can just use something like this. Okay, so for my main basket colour, I'm going to be using this cream colour. This is a normal cream double knit yarn. I've got about 100 grams of this, but I think for each of your colours you're only going to need about 50 grams. So I'm not going to be using all of this. If you have about 50 grams, then that should work fine. And then for the kind of soil colour, I'm going to be using this sandy double knit yarn. And then for the mushroom base, you're going to need a white double knit yarn. And then for your mushroom colour, you're just going to want to pick any colour for this. I'm going to be using red, but in the other one I made I did pink. You can use any colour you want, but yeah, I'm going to be using a red double knit yarn for the mushroom top. And then you're going to need some sort of colour for the flowers. I'm going to be using this pale yellow, but you can use any colour you want. And then you're going to need a leaf colour, so I'm going to be using this mint green colour, but in the previous mushroom plant I made, I did a more earthy, darker green, but you can use any shade of green that you want. Okay, so I'm going to be starting off with the basket, so I'm taking my cream yarn and my 2.5mm hook, and I'm going to make a slip knot, and we're going to be making a ring, so I'm going to be making a chain of 4. You can also make a magic ring if you prefer that as well, so either a chain 4 and slip stitch into the 4th chain, or a magic ring. So I'm going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to slip stitch into that 4th chain, like that, and then I'm going to open the ring up and I'm going to be crocheting into this middle hole. So I'm going to be making 8 single crochets into this ring. So I'm going to insert my hook into that large hole and make a single crochet. So that's 1, and as I'm going around the ring I'm going to crochet the tail over it because we want to make some sort of drawstring. So I'm going to make my 2nd single crochet, so that's 2, again, that's 3, that's 4, that's 5, and as you can see as I'm going around I am crocheting the tail in, that's 6, 7 and 8. And as I continue to do more rounds I'm going to be crocheting the tail in more, so even if your hole doesn't close at this point, keep going, keep crocheting the tail in, and then you can keep pulling as you go and the hole will eventually close. So I'm going to place my stitch marker into my 8th single crochet, like that, and at this point I will just pull on the tail to see if it will close. So it's closed a little bit, but I'm going to keep crocheting the tail in as I go, and the hole will close when I pull the tail a bit later on. So that is round 1 complete, and now I'm going to complete round 2. So for round 2 I'm going to make 2 single crochets into each stitch, which will give me 16 stitches by the end of the round. So I'm going to go into my first stitch, again looping that tail over so I can crochet into the work, and make 2 single crochets into that stitch. So that's 1, that's 2, and then I'm going into the next stitch, 2 single crochets, looping that tail in, 1 and 2, into the next stitch, 1 and 2, and at this point I'm just going to pull the tail a bit more to see if it will close. So it's closed a little bit more, so I'm just going to keep doing that, and you can kind of like move and mold the shape so that it doesn't get too kind of bumpy. So I'm going into my next single crochet, 2 single crochets, and then into the next 2 single crochets. Just pull on that tail again. I'm just going to keep going, making 2 single crochets all the way around until I reach the stitch marker. Okay, so now I've reached the stitch marker, I'll just remove the stitch marker, make my last 2 single crochets into that stitch. I'm going to give the tail a little tug, even though it's quite short. I'm just going to give it a little tug and see if it's going to close any more. So that's closed now, so I'm pretty happy with that. So that is round 2 complete. You should have 16 stitches in your round. And now for round 3, I'm going to make 1 single crochet into the first stitch and 2 single crochets into the second stitch, and repeat that sequence all the way around. So into the first stitch, 1 single crochet, and then into the second stitch, 2 single crochets, and then into the next stitch, 1 single crochet, and then into the next stitch, 2 single crochets. So I'm just going to repeat that sequence all the way around. Okay, so for my next round I will be making 1 single crochet into the first 2 stitches, and then into the third stitch I'll make 2 single crochets. So the sequence will be 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2 all the way around. So into my first stitch, 1 single crochet, into my second, single crochet, and then into the third, 2 single crochets. And then I'm just going to repeat that all the way around. So 1 in the next stitch, 1 in the next stitch, and then 2 in the third. Okay, so for round 4 I'm going to be making 3 single crochets and then 2 single crochets into the fourth. So I'll do 1 into the next 3 stitches, so that's 1, 2, and 3, and then into the fourth I will make 2 single crochets. And then I'll just repeat that all the way around. So 1 into the next 3 stitches, that's 1, 2, and 3, and then into the fourth, 2 single crochets. So I'm going to repeat that all the way around, and when I get to the end of the round I will have 40 stitches in my round. Okay, and then for round 6 I'm going to make 4 single crochets, and then into the fifth I will make 2 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then into the fifth, 2 single crochets. So I'm going to just do that all the way around, and when I get to the end of the round I will have 48 stitches. Okay, so now I have completed round 6. For round 7 to round 16, I'm just going to make 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around, so no increases. So I'm just going to go into my next stitch and make a single crochet, and then into the next stitch, single crochet, and I'm just going to make single crochets all the way around. You'll notice that the work will start to curl up, and that is completely normal because we want that basket shape. So if you want to make your basket taller, then you can do more rounds. There's no rules about it, you can just do as many as you want. And if you want to make your basket wider, you can do more increase rounds. So the following round you would do 5 single crochets, increase, repeat that round. Following round 6 single crochets and then an increase into the 7th and repeat around. So make it as wide as you want, and you can make it as tall as you want. So if you want it taller, just do more rounds than I am, and if you want it shorter, then do less rounds. Okay, so I've just finished all of my rounds. I single crocheted up until round 16, and then once you have all of your rounds and you're happy with the height of the basket, you're just going to slip stitch into the next stitch of the round, that, and then chain 1 and fasten off. Okay, and for the basket lid I'm going to be using the sandy brown colour, and I'm going to be repeating the exact same steps I did for the basket, so from round 1 to round 7, and then after I've finished that circle lid I will slip stitch into the following stitch just like I did for finishing the basket, and then chain 1 and fasten off. Okay, so I've just finished the basket lid, so I had 48 stitches in my round, so I just did the last row of single crochet, slip stitched and then fastened off, and as you can see it fits perfectly on top. So I'm just going to set this aside, and we're now going to be working on the leaves. So the leaves are going to be 3 different types of leaves. 2 of them are pretty much the same, just different lengths, and then 1 is a sort of puff stitch leaf. And I'm going to show you how to make the long leaf first. You're going to want to make 3 long leaves, and for each long leaf you are going to be making 6 individual leaves. So I'm going to be showing you how to make the individual leaves first. So you're going to want to make a magic ring. So you're going to want to hold the shortest part of the tail with your thumb and fingers, wrap the long part behind it, and then cross it over like this, and then with your pinky grab the yarn. Make sure that you have an obvious cross. With your hook you're going to want to take it underneath the top left part of the cross, and then grab the top right part of the cross and pull it under, and then you're going to want to twist your hook, and then you're going to want to make a chain 1 with the yarn where you're holding it with your pinky. So wrap the yarn around the hook and make a chain 1, and that is your magic ring. So once you have made your magic ring, we are going to make a series of stitches into the ring. So our first stitch is going to be a single crochet, and you're going to want to crochet over the tail. So just make a single crochet into the ring. So that's your first stitch, and then we're going to make 2 double crochets. So that's 1, and that's 2. And then we're going to make a half double crochet, and then we're going to make a single crochet, and that is going to be our first half of the leaf. Now for the midpoint we're going to make a chain 2, and now we're going to do exactly what we did here but in reverse. So we're going to make a single crochet, a half double crochet, 2 double crochets, and a single crochet. And then to finish the leaf we're going to make a slip stitch into the ring as well. And then you're just going to want to pull the string to tighten it, and as you can see it creates this cute little heart shape leaf. And then we're just going to chain 1 and fasten off. And then you're just going to want to weave these ends into the back of the work, and then you're going to want to make 6 of these leaves. Okay, so I've done my 6 leaves, and now I'm going to attach them all together with sort of like a slip stitch chain combination. So I'm going to start off with my green yarn and make a slip knot, and then I'm going to grab my first leaf, I'm going to flip it upside down, and I'm going to insert my hook into that bottom chain 2 space that we made, so this one right here, and I'm going to pull the slip knot through like that. Okay, and then I'm going to insert my hook into the middle of like the leaf, so that kind of hole, you kind of want to push the hook through, and I'm going to make a slip stitch. So I'm going to yarn over, I'm going to pull the yarn back up through that middle hole, and then I'm going to slip stitch like that. So that's the pattern for the first leaf, and then you're going to make a chain of 4, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and then I'm going to grab my next leaf, I'm going to insert the hook into that chain 2 and make a slip stitch, and then I'm going to insert my hook into the middle of the leaf, into the hole, and make another slip stitch, that. And then I'm going to chain 4. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then I'm going to grab my next leaf, insert my hook into that chain 2 space and slip stitch, and then insert the hook into the middle of the leaf and slip stitch, and then chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Picking up the next leaf, insert my hook into the chain 2 space and slip stitch, insert my hook into the middle of the leaf and slip stitch, and then repeat it again. So chain 4, and then I will pick up my next leaf and attach it the same way, and then chain 4, pick up my next leaf and attach it the same way. So I'm just going to continue for my last 2 leaves. Okay, so once you have attached your very last leaf, you just want to chain 1 and cut the yarn, and you're going to want to leave a long tail for sewing. And you only need to leave a long tail for your first long leaf, and then the rest of them you can just cut the yarn and weave the ends in. So I'm just going to weave in the end, the short end of this one. So this is the long leaf, and then the short leaf is going to just be 4 leaves, so 4 petals of each leaf, and you would just attach it the same way. So rather than having 6 leaves, you will have 4. So I'm going to be making 3 long leaves and then 3 short leaves. So I'm going to do that now, and then afterwards I'm going to show you how to make the puff stitch leaves. So I'm going to start making my puff stitch leaves. I'm going to be making 3 of these. So I'm going to make a slip knot with my green yarn, and then I'm going to place it on my hook, and I'm going to start off by chaining 2. 1, 2, and then I'm going to make a puff stitch into the second chain from the hook. So I'm going to yarn over, push my hook through the second chain, and then yarn over and pull through. You should have 3 loops on the hook, and I'm going to pull, yarn over and pull my hook through the first 2 loops. That. So that is going to be like the first of the puff stitch, and I'm going to repeat that 4 more times. So I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook, yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and pull through the first 2. So that's 2. Then I'm going to repeat that again, so yarn over, insert my hook into the stitch, yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and pull through the first 2 loops. So I've done that 3 times now. I'm going to do that 2 more times. So yarn over, insert my hook, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2 loops, and then 1 more time, yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Okay, so now we have our kind of puff stitch, and to finish the stitch I'm just going to yarn over and pull through all of these loops, like that, and then you'll see how it puffs together. So that's going to be our puff ball. So after you've done your puff stitch, you're just going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to start my puff stitch again. So I'm going to insert my hook into the second chain from the hook, like that. So that is going to be our second puff, and then I'm going to chain 5 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I would just complete another puff stitch into the second chain from the hook, and then once I've completed my puff stitch I chain 5. So I'm going to continue that until I have 5 of these puff balls in total, so you'll be finishing on a puff ball stitch. So once you have done your last puff stitch, you're just going to want to chain 1 and cut the yarn, and then you're just going to want to weave in both of these ends, So this is what your puff stitch leaf should look like, and you're going to want to make 3 of these. So in total you'll have 3 long leaves, 3 short leaves, and then 3 of your puff stitch leaves. Okay, so now I'm going to be sewing all of the leaves to the top of the basket, so the lid, and you're going to want to leave a gap in the middle because that is where we're going to place the mushroom and the flowers. So we're kind of doing it on the inner sort of edge, but not the edge, if that makes sense. So around this section here. So I've got my first leaf chain that I made at the beginning with the long string, and this is what we're going to be using to sew all of the other leaves on. So I'm starting obviously with this one, and I'm just going to place it wherever on the kind of outer edge of the basket lid, but again not touching the stitches on the outside. I'm going to place my needle kind of into the leaf, and I'm pushing it through to the other side of the lid. I'm just going to pull that through. I'm just kind of going slow because sometimes the yarn will kind of attach around the other leaves, so you just want to make sure that you're going slow. And then I'm going to go and grab my next leaf. So I'm going to be doing it so I have my 6 leaf chain, and then I'm going to grab my 4 leaf chain. I'm just going to place it like next to it, and it doesn't matter if they overlap. I sometimes think as well that it looks good if you kind of overlap them because it has that more natural, messier look. So I'm just going to place my 4 leaf chain next to it, and now I'm going from the bottom of the lid back up to my next leaf, pulling through. Again, just going nice and slow. Make sure it doesn't attach to any other leaves because then it will get tangled. Okay, so that's our second one attached, and I am going to go around it a second time once they're all on. I just want to make sure that they're all attached first. So now I'm going to go back down, kind of grabbing another stitch on the leaf, and I'm going to go back down, pull that through, like that, and then I'm going to grab my puff stitch leaf. I'm just going to place it sort of next to my 4 stitch leaf. Now I'm going to go back up the basket lid, so I'm going to push my needle through from the back to the front, and I'm going to push it through my puff stitch and pull through like that, and then I'm going to go back down. So I'm kind of grabbing another area of the puff stitch, and I'm going to push the needle back through like that. So that is going to be my sequence. I'm going to do a long leaf and then a short leaf and then the puff stitch leaf. So I'm going to grab my next long leaf. Okay, so now I have attached all of the leaves. I'm just going to go around again to make sure that they are all secure. So once you have attached all of the leaves, you want to make sure that the tail is on the inside of the work, and then I'm just going to kind of make a knot. So I'm just going to go under this green loop and pull through, and then I'm going to leave like a loop there, and I'm just going to go back through that loop and pull to make a knot, and then I'm going to go back through again and repeat the same thing to make sure that it is secure. And then I'll just weave in the end into the work yarn, and then the leaves are all attached. So we're now going to be working on the mushroom base, that is the bottom of the mushroom. So you're going to want to take your white yarn, and I'm going to make a slip knot and a chain of 4. And then I'm going to slip stitch into the 4th chain to make a ring, or you can make a magic ring if you prefer that as well. And then I'm going to be making 9 single crochets into the ring. Okay, and then just pull on the tail to close the ring. And if it's still not fully closed, then you can keep weaving the tail into your next round and then pull the tail as you go to close it even more. I'm going to place my stitch marker into that 9th stitch that we just made, and then for round 2 I'm going to make 2 single crochets into each stitch, which will bring the number up to 18 stitches. For round 3 I'm going to make 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches, and then into the third I'm going to make an increase, which is going to bring our stitches up to 24 stitches. So I'm going to make 1 in the next 2 stitches, so that's 1 and that's 2, and then into the third 2 single crochets. Again 1, 1, and then 2 into the third. Okay, so for round 4 and round 5 I'm just going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch, so no increases. I'm just going to each stitch with 1 single crochet, and I'm going to do that for 2 rounds. Okay, so I'm now going to be doing a decrease round for round 6. So I'm going to be making 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches, and then into the 3rd and 4th I'm going to kind of combine them together to make a decrease. So I'm going to make my first 2 single crochets, 1 in the next 2 stitches. So that's 1, and that's 2. And then to make a decrease I'm going to just grab the front loop of the next stitch and start my single crochet, and then I'm going to go into the front loop of the next stitch as well and start a single crochet. And then you should have 3 stitches on your hook, and you just want to yarn over and pull through all 3 stitches, and that's going to combine 2 stitches into 1, so we're going to be minusing 1 stitch from our round every time we decrease. So now I'm going to repeat that sequence. I'm going to make a single crochet into my next stitch, a single crochet into the next stitch, and then I'm going to make a decrease. So I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over and pull through, insert my hook into the front loop of the next stitch, yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. Okay, so I'm going to be doing that all the way around. Okay, so this should now bring your stitches down to 18 stitches, and then for round 7 I'm just going to do 1 single crochet into each stitch all the way around. And then for round 8 I'm going to be making 1 single crochet into the first stitch, and then I'm going to make a decrease where the next 2 stitches sit. So I'm making my first single crochet, and then I'm going to make my decrease stitch, so insert my hook into the front loop, yarn over and pull through, and then insert my hook into the front loop of the next stitch, and then yarn over and pull through, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And then I'm going to make a single crochet into the next stitch, and then I'll make my decrease stitch again, so insert my hook into the front loop, yarn over, pull through, into the next front loop, yarn over, pull through, and yarn over, pull through all 3 loops. I'm going to do that all the way around, and I will have 12 stitches by the end of the round. And then for the next 3 rounds I'm just going to be making 1 single crochet into each stitch, so that is going to be up to round 11. So I'm just going to make 1 single crochet into each stitch for 3 rounds. Okay, so for round 12 I'm going to be working in the front loop only, so just grabbing that front loop, and I'm going to be making 2 single crochets into each front loop. So I'm grabbing the front loop of the next stitch, so I'm just picking that front loop up, and I'm going to make 2 single crochets, and then into the next front loop, 2 single crochets, and I'm going to repeat that all the way around, 2 single crochets into each front loop. Okay, so you should now have 24 stitches in your round, And then for the final round I'm going to be making 1 single crochet into the first 2 stitches, and then I'm going to make 2 single crochets into the 3rd stitch. That's going to bring your stitches up to 32 stitches. So I'm going into my next stitch through both loops this time, and I'm going to make 1 single crochet, and then 1 single crochet into the next stitch, and then into the 3rd 2 single crochets. Again, 1 into the next stitch, 1 into the next stitch, and then 2 into the 3rd. So I'm just going to repeat that all the way around. Okay, so I've just done my very last 2 single crochets into the last stitch, and now to finish the base of the mushroom I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch of the round, and then I'm going to chain 1 and fasten off. Okay, so this is the bottom of the mushroom, and you're just going to want to stuff this with either your yarn scraps or some stuffing. Okay, so I'm now going to be doing the mushroom top, so I'm grabbing my red colour and I'm going to make a slip knot. I'm going to make a chain of 4, just like we've been doing. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to slip stitch into the 4th chain to make a ring. And then I'm going to be separating the ring, and I'm going to make 8 single crochets into the ring. 1, 2, 3, and then for round 2 and round 3 I'm just going to make 8 single crochets, so just 1 in each stitch. I'm going to continue weaving that end in as well. So just 1 single crochet into each stitch. Okay, and then for round 4 I'm going to make 1 single crochet into the 1st stitch, and then 2 single crochets into the 2nd stitch, which should bring your stitches up to 12. So I've made 1 in the 1st stitch, and then I'm going to make 2 in the 2nd stitch. And I'm just going to repeat that all the way around. Okay, and then for round 5 I'm going to make 1 single crochet into the next 2 stitches, and then into the 3rd stitch I'm going to make 2 single crochets. So 1 in the next 2 stitches, 1, that's 2, and then into the 3rd stitch 2 single crochets. I'm going to repeat that all the way around. Okay, so that should bring your stitches up to 16 stitches. And then for round 6 I'm going to make 1 single crochet into the next 3 stitches, and then into the 4th stitch I will make 2 single crochets. So this should bring your stitches up to 20 stitches. So I'm going to make 1 into the next 3 stitches, that's 1, 2 and 3, and then into the 4th stitch 2 single crochets. And then I'm just repeating that all the way around. For round 7 I'm going to make 1 single crochet into the next 4 stitches, and then into the 5th stitch I will make 2 single crochets, which will bring your stitches up to 24. So 1 in the next 4 stitches, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then into the 5th stitch 2 single crochets. Just going to repeat that all the way around. Okay, and then for round 8 I'm going to make 1 single crochet into the next 5 stitches, and then into the 6th stitch I will make 2 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then into the 6th stitch 2 single crochets, and then I'm going to repeat that all the way around, and this should bring your stitches up to 28. Okay, and then for round 9 I'm going to make 1 single crochet into the next 6 stitches, and then into the 7th stitch I'll make 2 single crochets, and that will bring my stitches up to 32 stitches, and this is going to be our last round. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, and then 2 single crochets into the 7th. I'm going to repeat that all the way around. Okay, so I've just finished my last round, and then to complete the top of the mushroom I'm going to slip stitch into the next stitch. And then I'm not going to cut the yarn yet, I'm going to basically be sewing in some spots. So with your white yarn, you're just going to want to cut a long piece of the white yarn. And I like to cut 2 pieces because I like the spots to be quite thick. So I'm just going to cut 2 strands. Then I'm going to tie a knot at one end. I'm just going to pick up the top of the mushroom. I'm going to pull out like a long loop so that it doesn't come undone. I'm going to insert my needle into any sort of hole from the inside to the outside. So I'm just going to start here. I'm going to pull through. And then I'm just going to go up to any holes either at the side or at the top. Doesn't really matter. Just push your needle back through a hole above it or around it. And pull through, and then as you can see there's a little spot, so I just basically dot these all around randomly. I just scatter them across, and I do them sort of in different directions as well so they look a bit more realistic. So I'm just going from the back to the front, and then this one I'm just going to go to the side and then pull through. As you can see there, nice little spot, so I'm just going to dot these all around randomly. So when you have sewn all of your spots on, you're just going to want to bring the yarn onto the inside of the mushroom, and then you're just going to kind of place your needle and grab a loop like that, and then just push your needle through, leaving a short loop like this, and then you're just going to want to push your needle back through that loop to create a knot. And you can do this a couple of times to make sure that it's secure. And then just cut the yarn. And now we are going to be attaching the top of the mushroom to the base. So I'm just going to weave in this white tail onto the inside so that it doesn't get caught. Okay, and then I'm just going to line the top of the mushroom to the base. I'm just going to kind of anywhere on the base of the mushroom, just line them up, because you do have the same amount of stitches. And I'm simply just going to slip stitch both edges together. So I'm just going to go into the next stitch of the red top, and then find a stitch on the base of the mushroom and insert my hook into that, and then I'm just going to make a slip stitch through both like that, and then I'm going into my next red stitch and the next white stitch and make a slip stitch through both. Same again, insert my hook into the next red stitch and into the next white stitch, and then make a slip stitch through both. And I'm just doing this all the way around, and when it gets to about 2/3 of the way around, I'm going to stuff the top of the mushroom with more of my yarn scraps. Okay, so I've just finished stuffing the top, so I'm just going to slip stitch the rest of the way around. Okay, and then I'm just going to slip stitch one more time into the first slip stitch that we made. Close everything. Then I'm just going to chain one and fasten off. And then I'm just going to weave the end into the red section of the mushroom. So I'm just going to basically sew right here in the center, and you should kind of have a gap between the leaves and the mushroom to add flowers. So I'm just going to sew this now with some white yarn. Okay, so this is what it should be looking like when you have sewn the mushroom to the top of the basket. So I'm now going to be working on the flowers. So you're going to want to take your flower colour. I'm going to be using yellow. And you're going to want to chain a multiple of 3 plus 1. So I'm going to be making a chain of 24 plus 1. And plus 1 for the turning chain. So I'm going to be slip stitching into the third chain from the hook, so 1, 2, 3. I'm going to make a slip stitch here. And then I'm going to make a chain 2. I'm going to slip stitch into the same chain. And then I'm going to repeat that one more time, so chain 2 and slip stitch into the same chain. And as you can see, we've got this sort of petal-like thing. And then I'm going to make 2 slip stitches, one into the next 2 chains. So slip stitch and slip stitch. And then I'm going to make another flower bud, so I'm going to chain 2, slip stitch into the chain 2 again, and slip stitch into the same chain, and then chain 2 again, and slip stitch into the same chain. And then I'm going to make 1 slip stitch into the next 2 stitches. So 1 and 2. And don't worry if your work starts to curl a little bit, that's completely fine. So I'm going to make another flower bud, so I'm going to chain 2 and slip stitch into the same chain, chain 2 and slip stitch into the same chain, and then chain 2 again and slip stitch into the same chain. And then I'm going to make 2 slip stitches, 1 in each chain. Like that. So I'm going to continue that all the way across, so the sequence is going to be chain 2, slip stitch into the chain, and then repeat that 2 more times, and then I'm going to make 1 slip stitch into the next 2 stitches. So I'm just going to repeat that now all the way across the chain. So I've just done my last 2 slip stitches, and I'm going to end on a flower bud, so I'm going to chain 2 and slip stitch 3 times. Okay, so I'm now going to chain 1 and fasten off, and I'm going to leave a long tail for sewing. And then you're just going to want to sew the flowers all the way around between the base of the mushroom and the leaves. So you'll kind of wrap the flowers around like this. Make sure that they are not twisted, they're all facing up the right way. So once you have sewn the flowers on, you're just going to want to turn the work upside down so that you have the thread on the inside, and you're just going to want to make a double knot. So now we are going to be stuffing the base of the basket just with some scrap yarn, or if you've got stuffing, use that. So I'm going to be cutting a long string of the cream yarn, so the basket base colour, and I'm going to be sewing the top to the bottom. So I'm just going to make a double knot with the thread, and I'm just going to line up the top of the basket, so the basket lid on top of the basket base. It doesn't matter where you start, you can start anywhere, because we have the same amount of stitches on the top as the bottom, so it doesn't really matter where you start. You're just going to want to make sure that all of your leaves are like out of the way, so you're not sewing the leaves into the work. I'm just going to insert my needle into any of the cream stitches, it doesn't matter which one, like that, and I'm just going to pull through. Don't worry about the tail because we're going to weave that in later. And then you're just going to want to pick up a brown stitch from the basket lid and then pull that through as well. So we're going up like that. And then we're going to go into the next stitch, so the stitch to the right, and then I'm going to pull through. And then I'm going to go into the next cream stitch, so the one right next to the one that we just inserted our needle into. So now I'm going down to the cream stitch. Again, make sure you're not getting the thread caught, just pull that through. And every time you do a couple of stitches, you can kind of pull and tug the thread tighter and it will close that kind of gap. So now I'm at the cream stitch, I'm going to go one to the right of the cream stitch and pull through. And I'm going to go up to the next brown stitch on the right as well. So basically snaking the thread around. So if it makes it easier, you can go into the next brown stitch and also the next cream stitch and just do it in one go. So I'm going down, and this makes it a lot quicker as well. And then I'm going into the next cream stitch and the next brown stitch, and now I'm going up. So I'm basically just weaving the tail of the yarn through both sides, like that. And I'm just basically going to go all around the basket. Okay, so I have stuffed the basket and I've worked all the way around, so now I'm back at the beginning. So to finish, I'm just going to basically go down into the next stitch, so basically the first stitch that we did, just going back down. And then I'm going to kind of grab a loop on the basket. So I'm just going to insert my needle and kind of grab a loop, and I'm going to make a little knot. So I'm just pulling it through, leaving a loop, and then going back through the loop and pulling tight. And I'm going to do that a second time to make sure that it's nice and secure. Okay, and then you can just push your needle back into any stitch and just drag it across the basket and pull through, and this is just going to kind of help weave that end in, and then you can just cut the yarn, and then with your hook you can just push it through up to the sort of double knot tail that we had, and I'm just going to kind of wrap it around and I'm just going to pull it through. It can be a bit fiddly, so if you need to use a smaller hook for it, you can. Step, we are going to be doing the kind of string section. So I'm going to grab my cream yarn. You can use any colour you want, but I want it to all kind of be matching. So I'm going to use my cream yarn and I'm going to make a slip knot. I'm going to insert my hook pretty much into any of the cream stitches, and I'm going to also grab the kind of corresponding brown stitch as well, just to kind of make it a little bit stronger. So I'm pushing my hook through both of those, and then I'm going to pull my slip knot through both of those stitches, like that, and then just chain one to attach it. Now you can make the Now we're going to be making the strings that help kind of the hanging plant have, you know, it's able to hang, and you can make your strings as long as you want. I'm going to do about 38 to 40 chains, but like I said, make it shorter or longer. So I'm just going to chain about 38 to 40 chains. So that's 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and then once you have your chains, you're just going to want to cut the yarn and leave a tail long enough to kind of tie around. And I'm going to repeat that 2 more times, and I'm kind of spreading them out so that the points of the straps are like in a triangular section. So I'm just going to do one like on the opposite side over here, and then one over here as well. You should have something like this, and then you're just going to want to kind of do a big kind of knot, so you're just going to kind of wrap it around each other. That's why it's good to have these long strings, and I am kind of wrapping it around the chain part as well, so I'm kind of including that chain part because then the knot is nice and thick and it makes it nice and strong. So I'm just going to kind of pull the knot like that till you kind of get it. And you can do this as many times as you want to make sure that it is secure. Okay, and then the last step is to just weave in all of these little ends into the basket. I'm just going to do that off camera with my hook, and then I'm going to show you the final result. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for all the recent love and support and subscribers and comments that you leave, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye guys.